it's very sad that
Mhm.
we don't, when we look at young children, look at a 4 or 5-year-old that's been appropriately raised, let's say given the basics, it's
Right.
had its basic needs met. This is a child that's going to have a lot of inquiry, asking a lot of questions,
Right.
has not been told not to do that yet.
Mhm.
And it's just asking questions and asking questions and asking questions. And then so the mind naturally does that. You see, we know that from that data,
Mhm.
of which we have much.
Mhm.
And so therefore we know the human mind is perfectly capable of doing that. And
Right.
if you can do it very well when you're a 4-year-old, whatever your IQ level, then
Right.
why can't you do that well? I mean, many times better as
Mhm.
an adult.
Mhm. 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 And yeah, and one of the things that goes against it, this is now not about clusters or the logic of questions so much as it's the kind of the culture of education, probably not just education, but where as students mostly are, students are mostly acculturated to taking down information, to listening, at least in the sense of writing the lectures down in the notes. And it's a culture that where questioning just doesn't arise. I think it doesn't even arise in your own mind unless you're primed for that ahead of time, or unless that's promoted. Yeah.
Right. That's why. But once we do promote it,
Mm-hmm.
actually, it promote it, not
Right.
just say that we're promoting it,
Right.
but we actually promote it in the classroom,
Mm-hmm.
and for that matter, anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
When it's promoted, it does begin to generate and begin to generate
Right.
new ideas and new questions.
Right.
So this is very much related to internal motivation, but also external conditions for questioning, for the allowance of questioning, right? So there are a lot of things we don't ask because we're really not allowed to ask them in our societies.
Right. And in some my understanding is that in some cultures that there's a definite prohibition against asking questions, where questions are seen as disrespectful. And I have to confess, I don't know quite what to do about that, because you can't within your culture safely go around being disrespectful, even if by my lights the actual activity you're engaged in doesn't show any disrespect at all.
Well, the sad thing is that to the degree that you're not able to question fully, you're not able to think.
Right.
Freely.
Yeah. Right.
Because if you cannot ask questions that you actually are seeking the answer to, that means you don't have the answer.
Right.
And you're not allowed to ask it. So how are you going to, how are you going to get a satisfying answer if you get no answer?
Right.
How are you going to grow, and is your mind going to expand?
Right. The same thing holds for people in the culture in a classroom as well. In that in my webinar the other night, we were talking about questions and the importance of raising them and everything. And one of the participants said that she's one of those people who asks questions, and she'll ask a question, say in a classroom of the instructor, and then she'll have another question and she'll ask that one, and pretty soon she starts being looked on by the other people in the group as, what are you doing this for? They're just massive disapproval, and sometimes that comes from the teacher as well, because the teacher wants to cover the material, and here you are taking up time by asking your questions, and so there's this it's not formally enshrined in our culture to frown on questions. In fact, we say the opposite. But in practice, it often is frowned upon to ask questions, or to ask too many. I could say one of my favorite illustrations of this, or something like it, is if you watch war movies, or police drama movies. So in the war movie, the colonel will stand up and turn in front of 30 soldiers and they'll say, we're going on this operation and your group goes over here to the left, you circle around behind, you go up over here, you do this. And the colonel will talk for 15 minutes about the plan, and then he'll say, are there any questions? And no one raises a question. I'm sitting there thinking, I got a ton of questions. I mean, my life is on the line about this, so the lives of all these others. What if it doesn't go right? What's our plan B? What if I mix up left and right? I mean, and I've actually talked to people in the military and a few police, and they say that's not just movies. That's what actually happens when someone tells you, when the colonel gets up and tells you the plan. So I think that it would take a great deal of intellectual courage in a meeting of being one of 30 soldiers where the colonel is giving you the plan, to raise the question, well, what do we do if this goes wrong? I think that would be seen often as obstructive, as not being part of the team, whereas to me, it makes you a better part of the team.
This is why intellectual autonomy is so important.
Yeah, right.
So if we encourage the development of intellectual character, then a person is in a situation like that, is able to first of all say, okay, here's my real question, and second, is it safe to ask it?
Yes.
And so
that's right.
So you have to be able to make both of those moves, and you've got to make them well.
Right.
So then I think that students asking questions of the teacher is in a kind of situation like the one you were mentioning in class a few minutes ago, is it eliminates for me one of the problems, one of the reasons why we're not advancing critical thinking very much in education is because we're not placing questions at the heart of teaching and learning. We are still placing content, undigested content, at the heart of teaching and learning.